Studio Press presents Ink Tales, Bedtime Stories for the End of the World, written by Inua Ellam, Helen Mort, Joelle Taylor, Kayo Chingonyi, Will Harris and Malika Booker, and read by Will Harris. Introduction. When Scheherazade wanted to placate the tyrant king Shahryar to save her life and the life of her sister, she would distract him with tantalizing stories of magic and adventure, never quite finishing the tale. If he killed her, the king would never find out how the story ended, something he could never quite bring himself to do. Today, teams of artists and scientists are trying to figure out a way to warn future generations about the lingering threat from the nuclear waste we have barreled and buried under the earth. One suggestion is to breed a species of cat whose fur would change color in the presence of nuclear radiation and release them into the wild around disposal sites. Then we would sow myths and legends which caution that if you see a feline creature shifting colors, you turn and you run. What we mean to say is that stories can be a way to survive. In the ancient Greek epic poem The Odyssey, King Odysseus' ship is blown far off course. He lands on a small wooded island where he and his men are caught by a cyclops, a giant man with one eye set squarely in the middle of his face. On the island of Crete, archaeologists recently discovered the skull of a woolly mammoth. They speculated that the ancient Greeks might also have stumbled across these vast, fossilized remains. The skull of a woolly mammoth has a hole set squarely in the middle where a trunk or perhaps an eye would once have been. In the hot summer of 1518, the people of Strasbourg began to dance. It started with one woman jigging and shaking in the town square. More and more joined her, their numbers swelling to a crowd of hundreds who danced without stopping for days on end. Some of them collapsed and died of exhaustion. The authorities soon began to blame the dancing plague on a holy wrath visited on a sinful population. They swiftly banned music and dancing and introduced a strict period of enforced public penance. The surviving dancers were given red shoes to cover their bloodied feet and led off into the hills to the shrine of St. Vitus, the patron saint of dancers. In Grimm's 1812 version of Snow White, the evil queen is cursed to dance in red-hot shoes until she drops dead. Today, the neurological disorder Sydenham's chorea, which causes the limbs to jerk uncontrollably, is sometimes known as St. Vitus's dance. What we mean to say is that what survives of us is stories. When civilizations fall, when the buildings have crumbled to rubble and the people have gone, there are still monstrous women beckoning travelers into the river and half-god tricksters wrestling snakes on a bare mountain at night. When floods sweep cities underwater, stories buoy up to the surface of the waves. When people are chased from their homes, they carry their stories on their backs with them like children. In 2017, we started the podcast Bedtime Stories for the End of the World to investigate what kind of stories we want to pass on to future generations, which myths, legends and fairy stories we want to preserve from flood, fire, war or human forgetfulness. Chaotic and extraordinary times can be just the right moment to ask what parts of the past we want to carry with us and how the stories we tell each other can build a better future. This book takes up that mission again, with 6 of the UK's top writers selecting a favourite tale to preserve within these pages. We're excited to bring you stories from Malika Booker, Will Harris, Helen Mort, Inua Ellam, Kayo Chingonyi, and Joelle Taylor. Our writers spent time rummaging in the rubble discarded by previous generations, exploring unexpected avenues and unsung characters of familiar tales, and sometimes salvaging stories purposefully tossed onto the bonfires of history. This is all par for the course when it comes to spinning a story. Most myths were sung and recited for hundreds of years before they were ever written down, which is to say that all tellings have always been retellings. In this heady, bewildering process, things change, shift, are misheard or forgotten, filled in and questioned, as people explore the meaning of what they had been told, and wonder which parts of it they want to pass on. When all tellings are retellings, we find a lot of possibilities to explore. We can wonder what happens when Philoctetes arrives on Moon Station 5 and can listen in to hear the gin-soaked voice of the wicked stepmother smoking out of the bedroom window. In this book, the spirits of unborn children haunt the living, and a snake-headed river god lingers in the waters of the Zambezi. A modern-day Icarus earns her wings in a refugee camp. Bear brides are taken from the houses of their fathers and mothers.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?